Xbox have now decided to drop a rather decent sale out of practically nowhere yet again, and it seems to be the week of just random sales, to be honest. If you remember, I actually covered the Beyond Countdown sale a couple days back now, but Xbox have decided to drop a Publisher Spotlight sale that actually includes quite a lot of games which either don't go on sale very often or at their lowest prices that we've seen since their launch. You definitely don't want to miss my highlight of the week as well, as it's an absolutely insane deal, but a bit more on that a little bit later on. Remember as well, I do give away a free Xbox game as part of these sales videos every single Wednesday. All you have to do is just comment below and you're going to be automatically entered. Congratulations to last week's winner. Just hit me up on our awesome Discord server and I'll get that game right over to you. With that though, yet again I apologise for your backlogs, and let's dive into the games on sale for this week. If you remember, I covered Hell Is Us in my previous sales video, however that was solely for the deluxe edition. I know many of you stated that it was still too expensive to grab for this week, however Nacon have now decided to drop the price of the base game by 40% and brings it down to a lovely £30. This price alone is utterly fantastic for the entire package you're getting here, and for me this is one of the best surprises of 2025 overall. As I did mention in my previous sales videos, you are going to be chucked into the world of Hedaya, which is a country going through a civil war. This one is part Souls-like, part adventure game and part detective simulator, and it all blends together incredibly well. It also doesn't feature a traditional map or marker system, which means you'll have to scour the environment and just work out clues just to progress. As mentioned, it is down quite significantly and I highly recommend it. Raven's Watch is a great roguelike that still needs way more eyes on it, and even though it's not been out too long now, 60% off is a fantastic discount. As mentioned, it is a roguelike, but it does a great job of blending fast-paced combat with dark fairy tale settings, and you'll choose from a cast of reimagined storybook heroes and then fight your way through basically procedurally generated maps filled with loads of dangerous enemies and challenging boss fights. What makes Raven Watch really stand out from the crowd though is just the tight gameplay loop, with every run offering you brand new abilities, builds and even upgrades. It also does support up to 4-player co-op, and teamwork really does become crucial in those higher difficulties. It still gets constant updates to this day, and I wouldn't actually be surprised if we get more content within the near future, and for £10 it's totally worth just jumping on. I had a chance to review EA Sports FC 26 back upon its release now, and safe to say it was a pretty decent outing from EA at the time. However, I did have quite a few issues on launch in terms of the gameplay and the increasing requirement of manual defending. Well, the game has somewhat improved a little bit more since then, and EA have been making many tweaks in the background, and I would say the gameplay overall is now okay and much more playable thanks to those overall changes. This week though, you can grab EA Sports FC 26 at a whopping 60% off, and for that price it's totally worth diving into, especially if you've been on the fence about it. I did say in my review that there weren't a massive amount of changes, which I did come to expect, but it's still a solid entry. If you want to check out my review, feel free to click the link in the comment section below, but if you're a football fan, it's just totally worth grabbing. I absolutely adore Formula 1, and each year I'm probably still one of those individuals who picks up the latest entry, and I do become part of that yearly cycle problem. Still, F125 is one that I do recommend, but with a few caveats here and there, as it's certainly not the best F1 game that we've ever received. Of course, this one had to change the controls yet again, alongside with the handling, and I know it wasn't that great until Codemasters reversed some of the many issues that some of us had. I do have to say, visually, it's pretty stunning, and it's easily one of the best F1 games we have to date in that department, and we recently had the news that F126 will be a DLC for F125, so they have more time to make a massive improvement for F127. With that in mind, it's definitely worth grabbing this version at that low price right now, because I don't see it going any lower, especially before that F126 DLC. If Diablo-style dungeon crawling really does appeal to you, then let me introduce you to Warhammer Chaosbane, and this one really delivers that sort of hack and slash fix, but within the iconic Warhammer fantasy universe. In this one, you can choose from several character classes, as you kind of expect from the dungeon crawlers, and all of them have their own abilities and playstyles, and then you'll be diving headfirst into the hordes of Chaos forces. The Slayer edition, which I'm highlighting in particular today, even though it's at a lower price, adds all of the DLC, heroes and expansions, really making it the most complete package available on the Xbox store right now. It's very fast paced, it's incredibly co-op friendly as well, which I wasn't expecting, and it really scratches that sort of action RPG itch without demanding dozens of hours of grinding like you come to expect in games like Diablo. Usually a bundle packed with that would be pretty expensive, but currently it's down to just under £4, and if you're a fan of loot heavy action, or just anyone looking for a sort of co-op game but on a budget, then this one is an easy recommendation. Delivery Deliver Us the Moon is a very thoughtful sci-fi thriller and a really mixed quiet exploration with cinematic storytelling. This one is set in a near future though, where basically Earth has run out of resources and you play as the last astronaut sent to reactivate a dormant moon base and then restore power to all of humanity. The game alternates between first and third person perspectives, which is pretty unique, and it uses then different puzzles and environmental storytelling alongside a sparse but beautiful soundtrack to draw you into it. You'll be navigating, of course, different zero gravity zones, solve system-based challenges, and just uncover the mysteries left behind by that vanished lunar crew. It is a slow burn for sure, so do stick with it, but it is one that does reward all of you with emotional moments and just some stunning visuals. It's now 80% off, down to just £4, and that's an affordable way to experience a deeply atmospheric narrative adventure game. If you remember, it took a little while for Karma the Dark World to make its Xbox debut, as it originally released for both PC and PS5 back in March of 2025, but since its release on Xbox, it's actually been getting positively praised by fans of horror games. If you're unfamiliar, Karma the Dark World is a first-person cinematic psychological thriller, but is all set in a dystopian world in which you have to investigate the twisted environments of suspect memories and the horrors that lurk within the corners of their minds. You know by now that I'm not a horror fan, so I haven't actually played this one personally, but considering the different reviews out there, it seems that the story is pretty decent and a main highlight, even though it does go into a bit of indie sloppish towards the end of it. Still, it does seem pretty decent, and this is a sizable 40% off for a game that only arrived to us a couple months back now. I have to ask you, do you like single-player story games? And do you like survival first-person shooters? Well, in that case, Beneath might be something to cast your eye over now that it's on sale for the very first time. The game is a Lovecraftian first-person survival horror adventure that was created by a small indie developer known as Camel 101, and you may have played one of their past titles known as Those Who Remain in the past. Interestingly, this one really is a throwback to the golden era of Xbox 360 classics, while also being an unapologetically tough game featuring scarce ammo and just merciless enemies. I can say it can feel a little bit scrappy at times, and you can definitely tell this was a small indie team that made this one. They really did nail that sort of feel you used to get from the Fear franchise. With that, I can recommend it alone, and for just under £12, it's a nice little bargain. Now, for something completely bonkers, I have to highlight Gori, Cuddly, Carnage, as it's now available for just £7.19, and that's actually the best price we've seen for this game so far. This game combines high-energy hoverboard action with absurd over-the-top combat, and it stars Gori, who's essentially a sassy cat battling mutated toys in a dystopian world. The combat, as you can probably see on screen now, feels very fast and fluid, with a very big emphasis on chaining combos and just pulling off stunts that feel as stylish as they are devastating, a la sort of Devil May Cry-esque. The game's humour is very dark and unapologetic as well, with a sort of vibrant yet twisted aesthetic that really sets it apart from anything else on the Xbox store right now. If you're into chaotic fun and a very unique premise, then Gori delivers a rollercoaster of laughs and action, and it's honestly one that I highly recommend if you're a fan of games like Sunset Overdrive or just Destroy All Humans. I also had a chance a few years back now to review Lumote, the Master Mote Chronicles, and although it was certainly not a 10 out of 10 game, it does do a fairly good job of being a competent puzzle game, and for 80% off, I'll happily recommend it. You essentially take control of a world of inhabitants on a quest into the Great Depths to essentially seize control from the Master Modes. After playing it for some time, not much has really changed from my original review all the way back in 2020. I now know that I have to traverse along the level, can jump on different creatures and run around with them, and have to stand on plants to move them and must not fall off the edges. The game is very weird, quirky, and definitely doesn't hold your hand, so I definitely only recommend this if you're someone who's competent with puzzle games these days. I know that many of you have been having a blast with RoboCop since the original release, and also since it landed on Xbox Game Pass a few months back now. Well, in that instance, I do have some great news for you this week, as we now have our first decent discount for the second entry, that being Unfinished Business, and it's down by 35% for a quite limited time. I would say it is a nice return to the Roboverse, but do not expect the same game as Rogue City. This is a very linear story with as much depth as a kiddie pool. This really is the epitome of this meeting could have been an email, and this should have been a DLC add-on to just Rogue City in general. However, it is a nice and different romp compared to that original entry, and the price tag this week of just £16.24 reflects that, and if you think about it, this is the sort of usual cost of DLC these days anyway. It is fun, you get a ton of weapons, and I just love the world that they've crafted yet again. You may remember Inkulinati being available on Xbox Game Pass about a year ago or so now, and it was a very unique take on the strategy genre as it took place within a medieval manuscript. The only other game that I can think has used this sort of stylization is Pentiment, so it's certainly a pretty niche game for that alone. It is a turn-based strategy game though, so some of you may sort of groan at that, but basically you'll be drawing your army of beasts and then spilling the ink of your enemies. It's all alongside sort of defeating medieval superstars and just collecting perks to unleash some cool and hidden powers. It's very unique certainly within its premise, and although it does fall short sometimes due to the repetitiveness, it really stands out amongst the crowd. I would say to maybe have a look at some reviews before purchasing this one, but for around £10, it's not the largest upfront cost to dive into a sort of unique indie game for this week. Tin Hearts is another one of those obscure titles though that really goes heavily under the radar, and I just had to cover it in this week's sales video solely because it's down to just £3.93, and for me that's less than a latte that I get in Costa, so pretty decent value if you ask me. To give you some sort of idea, Tin Hearts is a Lemmings type puzzle game that pits you and your group of soldiers getting from point A to point B in some elaborate and sometimes head scratching puzzles. It's pretty simplistic on the surface if you think about it, but personally I was expecting a sort of 4 to 5 hour game with a quick little puzzle element here and there with not a lot to it. I was then actually absolutely blown away by what I got instead. There's over 12 hours worth of puzzles without achievement hunting, alongside spectacular art and music design, and a story I genuinely wanted to know the ending to. It's a very enjoyable puzzle game, and I definitely recommend it for this week. Now, this next game went live in its 1.0 state at the arse end of 2025, and I feel Greedland is one that many slept on because the marketing was pretty non-existent. This is a top-down isometric shooter that gives you some awesome power armor, some fresh gear, and then devastating weapons as you plunge into the uncharted lava area for an unparalleled killing spree. They even added a all-new mecha mode that basically empowers you to dominate the battlefield with some pretty explosive results. Outside of that, I can't really say much about it because it's pretty self-explanatory. I will say it can get as addictive as games like Crimson Land and Vampire Survivors, with a bit of Tesla vs Lovecraft thrown in. Overall, it's a great top-down shooter with a good build variety and feels like a true spiritual successor to something like Crimson Land. If you miss it, definitely grab this game because you certainly won't be disappointed. The largest discount, and the one that I highly recommend grabbing as soon as possible, is for Steel Rising, but do be warned, you have less than 24 hours to grab this deal as they've only made it live for a limited time. It's now down to just £5, which is a massive 90% off for one of the best Souls-like games I've played in recent years. Instead of trudging through classic Souls-like gloom, you instead glide across rooftops as Aegis, who's a mechanical dancer turned death machine in Paris. The combat is very sharp but graceful, less like a brawl compared to other Souls-likes, and I do compare it more to something like Sekiro with its fluidity. I won't lie to you, I'm not the biggest lover of Souls-likes, and one has to really grab me to really keep me playing, and this one certainly nailed that. I have left the link below if you do want to grab this deal as soon as possible, and whilst down there, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to also subscribe for more Xbox content on a daily basis, and do check out the video on screen now if you want to have a look at the 15 incredible new indie games hitting Xbox Game Pass in 2026.